I'm Anna,
I'm Jessica.
and this is the Paranoia Pair.
Operation Mongoose.
I do like gooses.
Do you?
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, this has nothing to do with the goose.
Oh.
It's a shame.
Isn't a mongoose an animal?
Mm-hmm. They actually did name it after the animal.
Okay, I gotta look it up because I can't imagine what a goose is.
I do believe a mongoose is the one that can get bit by like a snake and like just sleep off the snake venom.
Hey, you're so right. Mongooses are small, agile, ferret-sized carnivorous mammals known for their fearless attacks on venomous snakes.
Especially king cobras.
Yeah, including cobras and adders. I don't know what an adder. They're a part of the Herpestidae family.
So,
By the way, Anna's doing this episode because I was ill prepared and I'm a bad noodle.
It's okay. I forgive you. To be fair, I have like millions of reports done already. So it's totally, I'm not upset.
I personally don't get a single report done until like the week of. I can't do ahead of time.
And we record these on a Wednesday. She does everything in 3 days. Granted, I do bang these out pretty fast, but like,
I'm blaming my 10-month-old, who, as of today, is 11 months old.
yay.
Okay, but anyways, go on.
Okay. So to set the scene, it's early 1960s and the Cold War is heating up. The Soviet Union and the United States are basically playing chess with the world's fate, no big deal. That's a very United States thing to do. And Cuba, a tiny island just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, has just flipped the chessboard because Fidel Castro, cigar in mouth, has overthrown a U.S.-backed dictator. So Castro was also cozying up to the Soviets, which was giving Washington, D.C. major red flags.
Anxiety?
Probably more red flags than a Tinder date who still lives with their ex-girlfriend, and probably is using that ex-girlfriend's car to go to your date.
I just heard about a Tinder date.
Tell me about it.
Where this guy met up with this girl and she literally, her ex drove her to the Tinder date or to the date and was waiting for her in his car in the parking lot, and she still lived with him and had sex with him sometimes, but
oh my God.
And then the guy said he left the Tinder date, and I think he just deleted the app for a while.
That's wild.
Yeah, good for her for admitting that, but
Right.
why are you going on Tinder dates if that's the situation?
Yeah, it feels like you don't want that to be over.
Yep, no.
So enter the CIA, who is desperate. They're also humiliated because they had a Bay of the Pigs. It's another mission that failed terribly. They're basically running out of... I'll get into the Bay of the Pigs.
Okay.
So they're basically running out of options. So what do? We're going to call the fucking mob.
The CIA is calling the mob?
Yes, the CIA is calling the Mafia. Men like John Roselli, a smooth-talking Hollywood mobster who has ties with both Hollywood actors and the underworld, because I would expect nothing less.
Hey, wait. If we're talking Italian mobsters, I'm expecting some Italian accent in this. I hope you brushed up on your...
I didn't. I didn't. Oh, God. So, together, the CIA and the Mafia make one of the most secretive plots in American history. Also, the strangest. So, their ideas. Okay? Their ideas. Exploding cigars, poisoned milkshakes, and toxic scuba suits. This is all true. This isn't made up. This is like worse ideas than me and you would think up, I feel.
2 out of 3 of those would have affected me.
Poison milkshake, definitely.
And the stupid cigars because my husband.
Yeah. So the best part is obviously that this didn't say secret, because
what was the goal for who were they aiming for to get?
Fidel Castro.
Oh, like these were... Who was he, a scuba diver? Did he spend a lot of time in wetsuits?
I'll actually go into, like, every single thing they thought of and, like, the testing and, like, if they actually, like, produced these things or if they were just ideas. 'Cause I can't. I needed to. So, people start dying, obviously, and, some of them may have known just a little too much. So, before
Imagine being murdered because someone told you about,
Oh, I know.
a poisoned wetsuit and, like, you knew too much, and they're like, "He's gotta go."
So, before Castro took power, Cuba was basically an American playground. Tons of US businesses were, controlled there, like the sugar plantations, we had oil refineries, banks, and the casinos that were run by the Mafia, the casinos were. So when Castro's revolution succeeded in 1959, he nationalized these industries, meaning that he took them over for the Cuban government and he kicked out all of the Americans. And with that, he took their profits. So they were pissed.
Bitch.
Once Castro took over, the US tried to pressure him with sanctions. So instead of folding, he turned to the USSR for support, which made Cuba a Soviet satellite just 90 miles away from Florida. So this was a huge national security threat because the Cold War was creeping up. So it's like letting an enemy build a military base in your backyard. So Castro wasn't just a local problem. He started inspiring leftist revolutions across the entirety of South America. And the US was terrified that it would make like a domino effect where one country after another would turn communist and then fall out of the United States' control and influence. Because for some reason, we just have this complex where we need to control everything.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Before the mob got involved, the CIA tried something a little more official. It was called the Bay of the Pigs invasion, and it didn't.
Were there
go
pigs
very
invading?
well. No.
They need to stop with these dumb names. Like, save that name for when pigs are invading.
Honestly, them sending pigs to Cuba would be hell of a lot more effective, I feel, than an exploding cigar.
Yeah, because the pigs would eat them. I mean, roll them in some honey, and then just like, oh my god, all the pigs in Cuba got let loose.
Where did all these pigs come from, guys? Actually, there is that island. I don't know if you know about it. There's an island somewhere tropical, and it's like known for how many pigs are there. And like people, it's like a tourist attraction. Like people are like
the pigs are nice.
Some of them, yes. But they're like petting the pigs and like hanging out with them. Some lady got a disease from a pig. So honestly, this could work.
I'm never going to the Pig Island.
In April 1961, the CIA trained a group of Cuban exiles to invade Cuba and overthrow Fidel Castro. The plan was to hit a beach, start a revolution, and then ride the wave of freedom all the way to Havana. But the whole thing was a disaster. The exiles were outgunned, outnumbered, and left without air support. So in just 3 days, Castro's forces crushed the invasion, and it was a major humiliation for the US, especially for President Kennedy, who had just stepped into office, which leads us to Operation Mongoose.
So they're calling those exiles pigs? The exiles are the pigs?
Yeah.
Rude.
So after the embarrassment of what was the Bay of the Pigs, the US government needed a win, or at least a distraction about how bad they looked. President Kennedy was already side-eyeing his intelligence agencies, authorizing a new operation so secretive that it wasn't even officially acknowledged for years. Its name was Operation Mongoose. The CIA handed the reins over to General Edward Lansdale. He is a man who once claimed to use ghost stories to scare insurgents into fleeing villages.
Same. I would flee.
Yeah. They would just, it was a dark and scary night.
It's a dark and scary night tonight.
Operation Mongoose wasn't just about killing Castro, though, although it was a big part of it. It was a full-scale multi-agency plan to destroy his regime from the inside out, economically, politically, psychologically. The plan included blowing up Cuban factories and sugar mills,
Oh.
spreading disinformation to turn Cubans against Castro, sabotaging shipments and poisoning crops, and an insane plot to assassinate him.
I mean, these are all fine and all, but like it's kind of messed up to do the ones that are going to affect the other people.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they wanted them to be pissed at Castro so it'd be easier to overthrow.
yeah, but some would probably be dying.
Yeah. I mean, they most definitely would, but we're not known to care about civilian deaths
That's
unless
true.
it's our own.
Well,
Even then, it's questionable. They held brainstorming sessions like exploding seashells planted where Castro liked to scuba dive. The CIA planners learned that Castro liked to scuba dive and proposed placing a beautiful, brightly colored seashell in a spot he'd likely explore.
get
But
me.
inside would be enough explosives to blast him out of the water.
How big is this seashell?
The idea was considered too impractical, finding the right spot and hoping Castro would notice that one shell. So it didn't move past the planning stage. A poisoned wetsuit that would cause a fatal skin disease. It was rigged with a fungus that would cause severe skin disease, along with a device to infect the breathing apparatus with tuberculosis bacteria.
Oh my God.
It was supposed to be given as a gift to Castro via an intermediary, but the delivery never happened. The suit was prepped, though.
Wonder what happened to the suit.
There was an LSD broadcast plot. This meant that they were going to spray LSD into the studio where Castro gave radio addresses, causing him to hallucinate mid-broadcast and lose credibility. It never made it past the planning stage, likely because of environmental unpredictability. And I just feel like that's lame as fuck.
Let's get him really high.
Yeah. We're going to make him hallucinate and everyone's going to think he's so kooky. There was contaminated facial cream to make his beard fall out because a beardless...
He's bald.
Yeah.
He's bald and he's torturing people. Who dare?
The CIA fixated on Castro's iconic beard. They genuinely believed that removing his beard would humiliate him and destroy his image as a revolutionary leader. So they proposed tampering with his personal grooming products like facial cream or shampoo with something like a high-powered nair.
Who was in this room of
I don't know. They were hoping it would make him too embarrassed to go out in public.
These suck.
It was actually discussed in detail though, and it was documented in declassified CIA files and mentioned during the church committee hearings, which we will get into.
This sounds like what you would do to your ex, like when you're spiteful.
Yeah.
Like put nair in his shampoo.
Yeah. Why would you murder him when you can just make him bald? Poisoned milkshakes. They had pills that were actually given to someone who was in contact with the government in Cuba who had access to Castro's food and drink, but the pills were stored in a freezer and they were either degraded or never delivered. There's also another source that said that they delivered it to one of Castro's romantic lovers and she couldn't find an opportunity to do it undetected, but she also had hid the pills in a night cream that she had, and she ended up not being able to use them because they got ruined.
Hope she didn't use the night cream either.
I know. Can you imagine him drinking them? Why does this taste
Why is it chunk in here?
She says that Castro actually had held a gun up to her because he had suspected that she was up to something. And then they ended up fucking each other.
That's romantic.
Yeah.
That's every book right now.
There was a pen that they had that was rigged full of poison. So it looked like a pen, but it was actually a syringe. It contained a hidden needle that would inject a lethal toxin, and it was meant to be used by an undercover agent or an assassin, and it was reportedly delivered to Havana for a potential hit, but the operation never followed through, and no one wanted to be the one to get that close to it.
Why not just like put a bomb in
Castro.
a pen and give it to him?
Right.
And then when he like clicks it inevitably.
Yes. So the next is the iconic exploding cigar. The CIA actually prepped cigars laced with the botulinum toxin, and it's one of the deadliest substances known. The plan was to have someone give it to Castro, who was famous for puffing on cigars. He always had a cigar. They couldn't find a reliable way to deliver it to him, though, without it being obvious or intercepted. So the cigar sat in a safe.
Is he why Cuban cigars aren't allowed in America?
Probably. So this was less like a military strategy and more like.
It's literally like petty ex lover's revenge.
So the CIA couldn't figure out how to get close enough to Castro to make any of these plots work. So this is when they're like, we need the mob. We need help. Because these ideas suck ass. Exploding seashells. We got Nair and face cream. We need help. It's the 1960s. He's still alive. He's still smoking cigars. And
Still getting seashells in his wetsuits.
They call John Roselli. Sorry. Johnny Roselli.
You didn't do the
Roselli.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. He was the Hollywood liaison for the Chicago outfit, meaning he rubbed elbows with movie stars and he ordered hits.
Do you want to rub elbows later?
God, I'd been waiting for this moment my entire life. The CIA saw him and go, this is our man. Not too high profile, but he was well connected and he was very charming. So instead of approaching him directly, the CIA sent in Robert Maheo, a former FBI agent turned CIA contractor who posed as a wealthy Vegas businessman working for angry international corporations. His fake pitch was, I represent big business interests and Castro's hurting our bottom line and we want him gone quietly. Roselli doesn't bat an eye, but he didn't want to get his own hands dirty because this is like a big deal. So he brought in Sam Giancana, who was a Chicago boss, and Santo Traficante Jr.
Oh.
He was a powerful Florida mobster who used to run casinos in Havana before Castro kicked out the mob. These guys were not small-time crooks. They were top tier, like we have senators in our payroll kind of guys. The agency was willing to pay up to $150,000, which is at least $1.5 million in today's money.
Jesus.
So the mob agreed to help pro bono, which means they didn't need any money up front because Castro had cost them a fortune when he had kicked them from Cuba's casino scene. And it was like thriving, like it was getting good there. They had personal beef and plenty of motivation, and the CIA handed off poison pills to the mob. The plan was to use one of their contacts in Cuba to slip the pills into Castro's food or drink at a restaurant that he frequently visited, but the plan failed. The Cuban official got cold feet and the pills degraded in storage, and Castro would go on to survive over 600 assassination attempts.
Jesus.
Which is fucking wild. The kicker is the CIA later claimed they didn't know Giancana was under federal surveillance when they brought him in to do the plan. So at one point, the FBI was tapping his phone at the exact same time the CIA was meeting with him in secret hotel rooms.
So two government agencies were
interfering with each other's plans, and they had no idea.
That's so funny. They don't communicate?
There was no coordination.
That's crazy.
So fast forward to the mid-1970s, and the U.S. government, we maybe went too far, but we're going to do this one thing real quick before we think we really, really went too far. So they did another operation called Operation Northwoods, and it was a proposed false flag operation, which means they were going to stage a fake terrorist attack on U.S. soil and blame it on Cuba.
See, this is why I don't believe all the shit that both political parties are pulling with each other because of this right here. The government is so fucking... I mean, all governments are obviously...
There's something in our water here. So they were going to use this to justify a full-scale invasion on Cuba. We're going to fake plane hijackings. We're just going to sink a boat full of Cuban refugees,
Oh.
blowing up a U.S. ship near Guantanamo Bay. And to his credit, President Kennedy did shut it down. But the fact that it even got written up and briefed and like it was officially proposed just shows you like how desperate the US was. So Robert F. Kennedy, the US Attorney General and JFK's brother, wasn't just leading a war on organized crime, as we remember for the Jimmy Hoffa episode, was like scorched earth approach on the mafia. He hated them and he really wanted to make an example. But behind closed doors, he was just, with the full knowledge of the CIA, recruiting mobsters on their payroll to help with.
I mean, it's kind of like how better to be able to infiltrate that world than having
Right.
some of them.
But he knew all of this was happening, and it's gonna make it to where they don't want to work with the government because look at what you're doing to them. You know what I mean? Then comes Watergate, and it completely shattered the public trust. And suddenly everyone wants to know what the intelligence community has been up to. The church committee hearings. It was a Senate investigation in 1975 that aimed to uncover illegal and unethical behavior by the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. And they dug up some fucking dirt. One of the most shocking revelations was that the CIA had plotted multiple assassination attempts against foreign leaders, including Castro, and had partnered with the mob to do so. So multiple leaders were on their target list. On May 1975, the Church Committee starts its deep dive hearings into the CIA abuses, including alleged assassination plots. On June 19th, 1975, just days before he was scheduled to testify before the Church Committee about the CIA and the Mafia collaborations, including the plot about Fidel Castro, Giancana was shot 7 times in his own home in Oak Park, Illinois. He was shot in the back of the head as he was frying Italian sausage and peppers in his basement kitchen. After he fell to the ground, the gunman rolled him over and shot him 6 more times in the face and neck. The weapon was a .22 caliber pistol, which was known to be a mob favorite due to its accuracy and how quiet it was. Due to Giancana's heart problems, he couldn't eat spicy foods, so he was likely cooking this meal for the person who killed him. And this happened despite the FBI surveilling his house at the time.
Oh,
No one was ever arrested for this.
shocker.
There are a few theories about why he was killed, though. Theory number 1 is that the Cuban government killed him in an act of retaliation. This theory isn't really considered an option by government officials, and I'm going to get more into that at the end. Number 2 is that the CIA didn't want him talking or testifying because it could have exposed everyone from mob bosses to CIA handlers, because this guy had direct ties to actual government assassination plots. And that's not really great PR for the government. And the third theory is internal mob drama, because Sam Giancana was effectively pushed out of power by the Chicago outfit in the mid 1960s. And it was largely due to a combination of arrogance and overexposure and federal heat that made him too risky to keep around. He had been under surveillance for years, and by 1965, he was jailed for contempt after refusing to testify before a federal grand jury about mob activities. And it's actually the Chicago outfit, it's like actually the name of the mob. I didn't know that, but they started to see him more as a liability than an asset. But when Giancana went to jail in 1965, Tony Accardo and Joseph Iopa, who was also known as Joey Doves, took the opportunity to ease him out. They filled the power roles and decided not to let him back in when he was released. So it was like it was more like an exile, like stay out or you're gonna be dead kind of thing. But after he was out of jail, Giancana fled to Mexico and lived there in exile for nearly a decade. And some say that he continued running international rackets while living abroad, especially involving casinos and drug smuggling. But he had lost control of the Chicago's operations. And by the time he was allowed back into the U.S., it was 1974. He wasn't really welcomed back with open arms, because his former allies had moved on, and when he started talking to the feds and the church committee, that's gonna put a target on your back. Um, so his return to Chicago did not last very long. It was confirmed, though, by a mafia boss from San Diego named Frank Bompensiro.
Sounds so much more authentic when you use the accent.
Does it? Okay, fine. So, poor Frank would be killed for giving information to the FBI.
He should know better.
The case remains officially unsolved, though, even though this theory was confirmed by another mafia boss. Many people believe the hit was sanctioned by the mob to keep him quiet, or even possibly like as a warning from someone connected to the intelligence world. Either way, it was enough to basically send chills down anyone's spine that would testify next. And who was testifying next? Johnny Roselli. He had already testified once, but the committee wanted to hear more, so they invited him back. They wanted to hear more about how the CIA cozied up with the mafia, more about Operation Mongoose, and more about the exploding cigars and the poisoned wetsuits. And Johnny was ready to talk. He had made it clear that he still had secrets to spill. He allegedly hinted that he knew more than he let on, especially about the CIA's darker corners that they were trying to cover up. And some claimed that he was even talking about what he might have known regarding the JFK assassination. Which, fun fact, Giancana and Trafficante have also been connected in various conspiracy theories. Back to Roselli. Before he could testify again on August 9th, 1976, Roselli's body was found.
Shocker.
Stuffed in an oil drum, floating near Miami in Biscayne. Is it Biscayne Bay?
He didn't think this wasn't going to happen after the other guy?
I don't know.
Like the other guy literally gets murdered and he's like, I actually got more secrets to tell.
So he was found, cut up, and burned. He had been missing for a couple weeks before that. So again, we have lots of theories here. Theory number 1, the mob got him because he had already testified and maybe was threatening to say more. So they shut him up for good. Theory 2 is the CIA said, okay, we've heard enough, thank you. Your time is over. Not you, Siri.
Siri's like, not my time.
It wouldn't be the first time that shady government tactics were used up to clean up a mess. There are also theories that he may have double-crossed someone because Roselli was kind of a wild card. He had ties to DC, Hollywood, Vegas, and he played everyone. And maybe he burned a bridge along the way. Like the mafia leaders he upset after he participated in a separate testimony in LA. He appeared in front of a federal grand jury, and it was investigating the mafia's involvement in the Frontier Hotel. And because of Johnny's involvement, 3 mafia leaders went to prison because he provided information in secret.
Ooh.
An unnamed mafia member said that just before Roselli was set to appear in the church committee's hearings, his murder had been approved by the Commission of Mafia Bosses. And this was confirmed again by Frank Bompensiro. Theory 4 is he, Giancana, and the others knew way too much about the JFK assassination. Some believe that Roselli hinted at it during his testimony. Roselli had told his friends that Castro had sent Cuban agents to kill JFK. And a Miami detective from Cuba said that he didn't believe Cuban agents were responsible because he said if Cubans had killed Roselli, they would have shot him down in the streets or blown him up in his car to make a point, not stuff him in a barrel.
Yeah, I don't know. That kinda...
But certain circumstances, I feel like they would switch things up.
That could be true. I'm kind of leaning towards the mafia because, like, I'd be pissed if I was them.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he maybe might have been confirming those secrets that he was leaking to people, and someone wanted to make sure that never happened. Both of their deaths sent a message, though, whether it was from the mob or the CIA or someone else entirely. And the fact that they both died while cooperating with the government sounds like a little bit of too much of a coincidence to me.
Awfully governmenty.
Yeah. And the church committee also investigated into other operations and doings of the federal government, but those I'm going to have to cover at a different time. And maybe I'll do an episode dedicated to the lives of the mobsters involved. I think that would be really fun. Like individually. I love the mob. It's so good.
Interesting too. And
Mhm.
they say that there's no more mob nowadays, and I hold out
I
hope that there's
I
underground
believe
mobs.
I believe there is still the mob. I think the mob is still alive.
Hope so.
I think that they're just doing it more in secret now.
There's so many good books about them.
I know. It was one of the first genres I started reading, like,
Yeah.
when I started getting, like, into books, like, as a teenager, like, mobster romances.
Somehow they always end up kidnapping the female main
Mhm.
character, and they hate each other, and then suddenly they're, like, so in love, and I'm like,
Yes.
"Give me more."
Suddenly they care about each other. I'm just fascinated with everything, like, mob related. I think it'd probably be a good episode.
It would be fun. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Paranoia Pair Pod. And we will see you next Friday.
Stay spooky.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.